when people have seen Reiki in the West, or the Reiki that came through Mrs. Takata, it is a lot different. Now, I don't believe things are good or bad.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of the Spiritual Inspire podcast. I am your host, Claudiu Murgan. For older episodes, please visit spiritualinspire.ca, Gnostic TV, and YouTube. And recently, if you want to purchase my books, a t-shirt, or book an energy healing with me, visit soulawakeningstore.com. Now, I want to introduce you my guest. Today's guest is Sifu Boggie. Sifu, thank you for joining me today.
You're more than welcome. Thank you for inviting me on.
You are such an interesting figure, well-known internationally. And I would like to start by talking about your early influences in life. So you began your journey into martial arts and healing at the age of 12. So what pivotal experiences or mentors during your early years most significantly shaped your path?
Well, as a kid, I wouldn't know until literally 15, 20 years later. But I was actually dyslexic and dyspraxic, so I was always a little bit different. And of course, we didn't have in 1980, like in the 80s, 1982, I was 12, and we didn't really understand it, or at least in the UK, they didn't really understand it. And so I was just a bit different, a bit odd, and I was bullied a lot. I was picked on at school for being different and seeing things outside the box. And so I started doing a martial art called Katina, which now has a different name. It's called Kiksa, but it was a very basic martial art, but one of its big premise was meditation. And that was the bit I actually loved the most. And me being me, I didn't pick like boxing or taekwondo or karate to begin with. It was this very unusual one which had this focus on meditation. And then there was a belt system, and through the belt system, you have a judicator that will come in to test you on the belts. And the judicator was actually a Shaolin and Daoist trained Sifu, master Sifu, teacher. And he saw something in me. He saw that out of the box thing, that thing that made me a little bit different. He sort of picked that up, and he had a conversation with my parents and asked if he could train me, and he started training me. And what he trained me in to begin with was Qigong. And like Qigong, like a lot of people have heard of Tai Chi. Well, Qigong is the grandfather of Tai Chi. Or if you say Qigong is music, then Tai Chi is a style of music. And so he started me on that. And also from that, I did a lot of so I did the meditational side, which is like the stuff they really start you on before you learn the fighting, and also the healing side. Is very interconnected, and they were my passions. I mean, on the fighting side, my biggest thing I actually focused on was learning how to take a punch, because when you learn to take a punch, then people can't hurt you, and if they can't hurt you, they lose interest very, very quickly. Especially bullies, and that was the biggest thing. So I learned how to beat the bully by actually just being, not giving them what they want, which is you to be fearful and you to to actually back off. So it taught me so much. I understood about psychology, and I then started studying that as well, and also I understood about pain, and that led me eventually to epigenetics and understanding, like in the East we call pain a flag. So I don't actually have one. Well, I have a lightsaber, that'll do. But a pain is a bit like a lightsaber. It lights up, and when it lights up like that, it's an indication. It's telling you there's something wrong. But what happens is we focus too much on the lightsaber and not actually the person holding it, or we focus too much on the pain, the cause, and not actually the effect. So as you can tell, very passionate about that sort of stuff, and that's what led me to just exploring more and understanding more, and just always seeing the bigger picture.
Yes, very interesting. And you mentioned bullying, and over the last 40 years, this phenomenon didn't diminish, but in fact has increased. And we have physical bullying in schools, but also we have the online bullying. Are you working with children and teach them how to deal with this phenomenon?
I have done in the past. I'd like to. I'm in the UK. I used to be down south in London, and I worked in schools and teaching, teaching martial arts, but teaching the meditation. But just and like you say, it's like actually teaching how to, to defeat the bully, but defeat without using violence, and that's the biggest thing for me is I spent a lot of time as a kid also, like humor is a big thing for me. So like Robin Williams, Steve Martin, these people were, they used humor as a weapon, and it's a very effective weapon. And so when I do get chance, and over the years, especially like my own daughter, her name is Ketra Taiso. Ketra means princess, Taiso means big trouble. So she's Princess Big Trouble, and she's just like herself, very unique, very weird, but has learned how to deal with situations. And I do as much as I can help kids and help people. And I'm always up for, like teaching where I am. I'm in the possibility where I could be teaching kids again. And yeah, it's great to, it's great when you realize that not only are kids the future, but they are your own teachers. They're your Sifu. Sifu means guides, muse. Somebody points you along the way. And just like a student, a child, you can learn so much from them. And it's one of the biggest things is teaching them is that you are the power, you are the light, you are amazing. And what bullies exist because they're jealous and scared of what you got, and they try to manipulate. They want energy, or they've lost their way and they want you to lose yours, and that's why you get these situations. And like you say, like online, you've got online bullies, but they're just hiding. The biggest thing with a lot of these haters is they hide behind a face. They don't come on camera like we do. They very much hide, and if anything, I try to teach people is if you've got bullies around, if you've got people bullying you, they're trying to steal your light. That means you are awesome. You are doing something right because you've got haters who are trying to knock you down. So that means keep doing what you're doing because it's obviously working, because you've got people who don't like it.
Yes, and staying on the education venue, I'm a big proponent of introducing meditation and different type of conscious exercises into school in the curriculum. How do you see this type of approach being accepted by the school boards, by the Ministry of Education, and being implemented like across the whole country?
Slowly, very slowly, but it is starting. It is starting to happen. I found it very interesting when I left school. You had to be in a certain way, do certain things. But when I went into business, and even though I trained to be, my day job was a baker. I actually trained to be a baker, but I was still teaching and doing martial arts, and I worked at a lot of private schools, and private schools educate in a different way. A lot of schools where they actually control their own curriculum, they educate in a lot different way, and back in the 90s, they were doing meditation, and they were doing, you know, like ways of, like, rather than the teacher telling you what, you know, what to learn, it was more about, you know, an open communication. But what I learned, or what I realized, is when I went into business and I was teaching Tai Chi and Qigong for Fortune 500 businesses, so millionaire, billionaire businesses, they don't care whether something's woo-woo or not. They only care if it works, because it's so what they would do, but because of their for their the people that, who were sponsoring them, you know, but if they had shares and whatnot, they would do lots of case studies, and from the case studies you see the evidence showing the benefits of this. And the biggest irony I find with things like meditation is, you look in nature, you will find, if you are a pet owner and you have a dog and a cat, your dog and cat will stare into space. They will meditate. You'll see nature, you know, meditate. When we looked into the case studies of meditation, it is not only is it a benefit, it's actually essential. We're meant to do it. I think it's something that's very, very important. And an interesting one for me is that meditation is really important. But another one which most kids get told off for, which is also really important, is fidgeting. Because, like, we think fidgeting is them not concentrating and not meditating, but fidgeting is actually the body's response to the nervous system building up tension and releasing that tension in a certain way. So because when I did meditation, one of the styles, Daoism, which means the way, the path, the balance, they will actually encourage you to move and twitch and put an arm up, because it's your body expressing yourself through that moment of stillness. So, and how it would sometimes be represented is in stillness of, like, say, a storm before the storm, the calm before the storm. In a hurricane, you have the eye of the hurricane, the calmness. So stillness and chaos actually are intermingled and intertwined, which my name, Boggie, is actually the meaning of the balance between the chaos and the calmness. So it's the actually understanding that process, that you have the chaos, which could be the wave up, and then you have the calmness, which is the wave down, and those two actually balance together. And I always have a little prop. This for anybody listening to this, I'm showing the Tai Chi symbol, or yin yang, which is like two little fish with two little heads. But when you turn it on its side, most people see it this way. You turn it on that side, it's a wave. So the wave is a part of nature, and it's that balance. And it's the biggest thing with education. It's showing them evidence, showing them that how it works. And there is enough evidence, more and more, of schools, different countries, that are actually using meditation more and more, and it's showing the benefits for the teachers, the students, and also as a unity, because when you meditate together, it has a more collective effect, and it affects the consciousness, which is not so much a woo-woo thing. We actually know that we have a bioelectrical field within the body, and when we're calm and happy, that field expands, and it's actually known as the pterygial field, the tora field, and it's our hearts generate an electromagnetic field. So when you have a group of people actually meditating together, those fields actually combine, and it creates more calmness. And there's actually case studies on this as well, where a group of people meditating can actually affect a whole community.
Yes, it's interesting, and especially if we take the children into nature, that phenomenon and that calmness, I think, will from nature will transpire into the kids' behavior, and they will learn even more.
Yeah, I love that great saying of nature turns into nurture, and the idea of when you're around in nature, it's the interesting thing of I used to live in Heathrow, which is right on the borders of London, And so, like, but people in the countryside would think I'm a city person, and people in the city would, oh, you're a country person, and because I was somewhere in between. But it's that interesting thing when you allow yourself to go into nature. Your body does react to it. Your whole systems, all your systems react to it. And there is a thing called earthing, which is like putting your feet on, literally your bare feet on the ground, or at least walking amongst trees, or more walking in woods or forests, is that your whole body actually starts to recorrect itself. The homeostasis of your electrical systems, of your body, all your lymphatic nerves, everything starts to rebalance when we spend time in nature. And so it's a really important thing to actually encourage kids to do this, because kids learn through habits. They learn through adults, and they learn through habits. So if you teach them early to meditate, you teach them early to get these positive life performing habits, then you're actually helping that person, to a great life in the future. It doesn't mean that, like, if as an adult, oh no, all is doomed, because we can always change, we can always adapt things. But it is this thing, is if we can get people, especially kids, to do it early, it becomes a habit, it becomes a good positive habit that you'll continue through your life. And then there's less stress equals dis-ease, imbalance, and that imbalance is illness, and that illness causes the pain, which then with the lightsaber or the flag, that's where we get those indications will come up.
Yes, indeed, very interesting. Sifu, you introduced Shan Qi Shen as a form of energy healing predating Reiki. For those unfamiliar, how does Shan Qi Shen differ from other energy healing modalities, and what are its core principles?
Right, so I love this. Thank you very much. So yes, so Shan Qi Shen means flowing energy spirit, or the flowing energy consciousness, and it is when people have seen Reiki in the West, or the Reiki that came through Mrs. Takata, it is a lot different. Now, I don't believe things are good or bad. And if it wasn't for Mrs. Takata, I would definitely say that a lot of what we know as Reiki wouldn't be known, because the Japanese are quite like keeping things to themselves. And so, but I will say is the difference between Reiki, the Eastern Reiki and the Western Reiki, is like the difference between a bicycle and a motorbike. And Shan Qi Shen is another motorbike. It's sort of like the cross between God, I've got to think of motorbikes now. A Yamaha and a Harley Davidson, let's say. So the Eastern Reiki is a lot different, and it is very similar to the Shan Qi Shen. So Shan Qi Shen, it has Qigong, or energy exercise, breath work, as part of its structure. So it builds up the energy. It then has it then has Zenhen, or in Sanskrit, mantra or chanting. So the chanting, the tone, that aligns the energy centers. It aligns, it gives you a feeling. So like when we sing or when we chant, we get that feeling, that energy, the vibrations vibrating through our body. And then, just like in the Eastern Reiki, the other important part of Shan Qi Shen is that they practice, they build up that energy, and what they send out, like the Tai Chi symbol, it will come back. So we always send energy out, and we always send it back. And just like the Eastern style Reiki, it is actually something, rather than being a one-off workshop, or it's a couple of days and you learn part one, and then a couple of months later you learn part two. It's actually like martial arts, Tai Chi, Qigong. It's a continuation. You actually build up on it every week. You practice and you grow that energy more and more. And in actual fact, what in actual fact, the Eastern Reiki and Shinshi Shen is very similar to Star Wars and the philosophy of Star Wars. George Lucas actually based Star Wars on Daoist philosophy and Buddhism, and then the fighting styles. So for those who know Star Wars, the Jedi are very much more Chinese style fighting systems, sword systems. There's more flowing movement, and the Sith is more the Japanese style, which is very Zen, which means to point or do one direction, one attack. So it's far more focused on getting to the point. So the whole philosophy of Star Wars is actually based on the Eastern philosophies. Yoda himself, his sayings are mainly Buddhist and Daoist sayings. So, do not try. There is no try. Do or do not. There is no try. Is actually a Daoist saying. And the same with the whole idea of the force is qi, the yin and the yang, the yin, the black side of the black side is the dark side of the force, the yang is the light side of the force, and they come together to create Tai Chi, which is balance, which is the energies harmonizing. So it's this whole idea in Shinshi Shen is that when you're breathing in, you're expanding your energy, you're creating light, yang. When you're breathing out, you're contracting your energy, you're creating yin. You moving and flowing, like with your breath in, you breathe out. Breathe in, expand, breathe out, contract. And you're sending that energy out, you're drawing it back in. This flowing movement, this working with the breath, working with the sound, work with the physical body, with the emotional body. So the sound works with the emotional body, the emotions. And then you also work with the top dantian, which is Shen or spirit or the third eye, the pineal gland. And that's the intent. When you work with all of these, that's what they call the Trinity. And the Trinity balances the energy. With some, if you're just working, I'm sending energy out, and it's just purely mental, it will still be good, but it's lacking in emotion and lacking in physicality. It's a little bit like manifesting an idea. If you just sit there and go, I want £1 million, want £1 million, then it might take a very long time for it to happen. But if you actually go out there and buy a lottery ticket, or go out there and do a job that you're passionate about, it's more likely to happen. So the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual are very intertwined in Shinshi Shen. So it's all about the mind, the body, the spirit, sending that energy out, but building it up and making it stronger and stronger and stronger.
Yes, and I think the Eastern religions and traditions always knew that we are all energy, no matter in what form and shape. And today's spiritual community, I think, is trying hard to explain to the larger masses that we are energy, and no matter what we do, what we think, we move that thought through energy. We move these words through sound, which is energy. And it's not an easy task to make people at large comprehend this idea. And because we are on the topic of energy and qi, I know, and I interviewed people who are living on qi only. They don't eat food. So I want to know your take on this concept. And other people might think this is woo, but I know it's real.
Yeah, and you and me both. So my teachers were working in diplomatic circles. So they worked with like diplomats and ambassadors. They also worked in the Fortune 100 and 500 index businesses. So they worked with millionaires and billionaires. And I mean, we'll go on that bit first. Is that what I learned was in the rich companies, they don't care if it sounds woo-woo. They don't care, if it looks like magic. If it makes them money, or if it does what they need it to do, they'll use it. And what I mean by that is, I know for a fact in in the millionaire, billionaire companies, they use telepaths, they use empaths, they use psychics, they use remote viewers. They use it, whether you like it or not, they use it. And I know they use it because one of the things I used to do for my teachers, I would teach, that's my lightsaber turning off. I would teach Qigong to psychics, empaths, telepaths, because it would enhance their abilities. And then we also did we would do case studies to show the evidence. So for the people who didn't believe, or people who did needed their backing, they would do case studies. So in actual fact, in the 90s, I was in China, and the people you were talking about who live off Qi, in India they tend to be called breatharians, and in China they're called oxygenators, and they are mainly they have about, maybe some of them not at all, but some have about half a cup full of water every single day just to rehydrate themselves. But the majority, they do between 12 and 18 hours of Qigong, meditation, yoga, or Neigong in China. Yoga is called Neigong, or it's Qigong style yoga. And they do a whole mixture of this to build up their energy. Now, I was there to participate to a degree, to look. We were actually with scientists, and we were there to look after the scientists. And the scientists were there. They wanted to be there 24/7. They wanted to make sure they weren't secretly eating a pie or anything, or drinking more than the water that they're supposed to drink. And so we were with them for about a month, 24/7 with these practitioners. Now, for me, it was like heaven. It was like, because I got to learn some of the secrets and working out. And there is techniques that, it is the biggest thing. It was Einstein that said that magic is science not yet understood. And when you look at certain things and you see things in a certain way, it's like, oh, it seems mystical, magical. But when you actually work it down, science is involved. And the interesting thing of all what we call woo-woo stuff, like the meridians, the chakras, the aura, the Merkaba, the Torah field, they have already been detected. They have, over the last 50 years, machines have been created to detect these. And there are physicists, scientists that have those machines and have done that. But then you've got the mainstream, which is still trying to push that information back. You have, in 1974, quantum physics found what's called the quantum field, that in the atom, that we are often told that the atom is 99.999% empty space. They actually found there was the thing called the quantum field, which connects every atom with every other atom. But when they found the quantum field, they pretty much discovered the reincarnation, chi, energy, everything's connected. They pretty much showed evidence that therefore there's ESP, mind reading, telepathy, all of this could be proved by, so the evidence there. There's lots of evidence there, and one of these with the breatharians or the oxygenators, they need it greatly benefits them to be a high level, so high altitude, a mountain, but they also will need a forest area or a very tree-based area, and also need water. And the qualities, so the either the ocean or a lake, and they're drawing in through the particles of the air, they're drawing in water that way. They're getting heavily oxygenated by the trees, and then the magnetic field in the mountain increases their field, and then all the exercises they're doing on top really builds up their whole energetic system. So it's not just a case, it would be not impossible maybe, but very, very hard for somebody to live in the middle of a city and be a breatharian, an oxygenator. There are certain factors that you need. There are certain things, but there is a lot of evidence. Like, people want to dismiss it because if they actually go, "This is true," they start. When we look outwards and we see magic, we start looking inside and seeing why can't I do that? Why haven't I done that? What have I done with my life? And this is the issue on certain things, is that if we start to realize what wonders are out there, people at first will feel they're wasting their time. And it's like, well, then do something good, do something with it, go and practice, go and find something that you're, because I think we get too lost in too much materialistic stuff. We get too much lost in the dramas on TV and whatnot, and we miss all that heavenly glory, which is what, like, Sifu is all about. Sifu's like a finger pointing towards the moon, but do not look too much at the finger, because you'll miss all that glory. Don't get stuck on the money, or don't get stuck too much on this. Allow yourself to be like a child. Look out, stare into space, daydream, see all those wonders and be part of it.
Yes, I think most of us will still want to enjoy that glass of wine, pint of beer, or a croissant, instead of living off prana or chi. And that's the main thing, is the easiness of life we live today. But it's my hope that in several generations we'll be able to all develop these kind of skills. So we'll have a less footprint on Mother Earth in terms of resources, food, mining, everything else.
Yeah, I think, it is. I think for me as a Daoist, it's about be you. Like, if you want to be an oxygenator, go and do it. If you want to study science, go do it. Be whatever it is that you actually want to be, and I think that's more of if you're spending too much time, if you're a hater on the internet and you're spending so much time hating on people, you're not enjoying your own life. You're not doing what you're meant to do, which is find what passions you enjoy. Find what feeds you, what passion feeds you, and go and do that. Because ultimately, that is food. Is that your passion, your desire? That's what feeds you. Because you can eat and drink as much as you like, but if you're not getting that passion, if you're not doing the things that you desire, that makes your heart smile, then you'll always internally be hungry.
Yeah, and yes, and talking about cooking and food, I mean, the concept of 5-element cooking is very intriguing. Incorporates earth, metal, water, wood, and fire into dietary practices to promote holistic health. How do you do that?
Yes, I do. I studied that. I was actually, when I was 16, I actually said to my teachers, my Sifus, that I wanted to be a baker. And they turned around and said, "Excellent, bakers make good masseuse, great at massage." But they also then, when I was training with them, they would take me to see the 5-element chefs. And that's the difference. There are restaurants in China where you would go in, and there will be a doctor who will check your pulses, look at your tongue, write a prescription, and that prescription would be your food. And then the chef, the 5-element chef, would actually create the food that will help rebalance your system. And yep, so I do that more on a personal thing. I have had a few people think I should open up a restaurant, but it's like, I've got so many other things I want to do as well. It's at least now, it's the least on my maybe one day, maybe in another 30-40 years, I'll open up a restaurant. We'll see. But for now, I'm quite happy doing the massage and teaching Tai Chi and Qigong and doing podcasts.
And having this experience going to China and potentially Japan, I don't know exactly if you went to Japan or not. Do you see the old traditions being preserved by the existing system, or is slowly fading out?
A little bit of both. It's so in the Japanese way, the Zen way is that things should stay exactly as they are, and you should keep that. That's the tradition, that's the ancient knowledge, and you should keep it the way it is. And I honor that, and I get that to a degree, but then the Daoist side is you have to, we all evolve. We once were in caves, and we're in houses. Someday we might be in spaceships, and the whole idea is that as we evolve, the information should evolve too. Saying that, at the same time, there is you've talked about the 5-element cooking. Well, the 5 elements is actually a whole philosophy, the 5 theories, and it believes in being able to do some sort of energy work, or like Tai Chi, Qigong, being able to do massage, also being able to fitness or self-defense, being able to philosophize, and also even playing some sort of music or something in the arts. And when you have these 5 skills, whether society is in caves or is in spaceships, as a Daoist, you can always thrive and survive. So there is definitely, I definitely feel there are parts of that are kept and are growing. Some bits have faded away. That I definitely know there are some bits of knowledge that are harder and harder to find, and it's interesting because in a world, well, it's gone the other way, where originally, it was before the internet. We were, information, you could find information being located places, and I had to go to China, I had to go to different places to find this information. Now the internet, so like myself, I teach all over the world. I teach different people. I teach Australia, America, Canada, even a few places in China and in Europe. So now it's global, but at the same time, there's so much information now. You have to use your discernment. So it's this idea of, the information's there, and there will be people who will protect it, because I think that's what happens, is certain people will look after it and will protect it. But it's this whole idea of you want it to be obtainable, and that's great, but you also don't want it to be too diluted. You don't want to lose too much of the path. So I agree with the Zen way, the Japanese way, and I agree with the Tao way as well. I'm a bit awkward, I agree with both. Is that some things there should be a traditional version. There should be a bit of respect for the traditional path, but it also needs to adapt. It also needs to grow and flow with the situation. Is that, it's if I'm in the past, I have taught able-bodied people, I've taught people in wheelchairs, I've even taught a blind person, and I've had to adapt the way I teach to those people, and that shows how powerful that information is if it can adapt. Because if you and also how good you are, but the information itself needs to adapt and needs to grow, because as things change, if it doesn't change, it will be left behind.
Yes, and you as a teacher, you learn from this process of adaptability for sure.
Yeah, very, very much. I mean, I've always said that I am as much the student as I am the Sifu, and I learn from the people around me, and I'm always learning and listening and growing, and that's important. Is that I think for me, a lot of people talk about the divine masculine or the divine feminine, but for me, you must not also forget the divine child. And the divine child, in the ancient knowledge, the divine masculine was all about the protection side, protecting and looking after things, but also action, getting things done, going in there and starting things. The divine feminine was about the nurturing and the mothering, and keeping things going. The child is about looking at all that wonder and seeing inspiration and ideas and stepping outside, being a bit dyslexic or autistic and stepping outside of the box and seeing things in a different way, but also playing and never taking things too seriously. So for me as a teacher, is that, yes, I take helping people seriously, but I don't take teaching serious in the essence of my goal is to make it fun, and my goal is if it becomes boring for me, it'll be boring for everybody else. So you need to be able to interact with the knowledge. You need to be able to interact with people and play. It's often said in my classes that I'm the most scariest thing Sifu does. He says, "What would you like to learn? What would you like to do today?" And because apparently that's very scary, because for me, it's as important to get what you want as it is to teach you stuff. Yes, teach the basics, and teach things in a certain way, but it's also, you want to get somebody's, you want to get their juices flowing, you want to get their heart going, and if you're teaching what they want to learn, or at least a little bit, or start them on that path, then that's where the journey continues and goes. But if you're teaching something too much, something that somebody doesn't want to learn, that it will, then that information gets lost. But it's finding a way to teach even the boring stuff in a fun way, and then it's never boring.
Yes, beautiful. Thank you. Sifu, what's your connection with the dragons?
Well, I've always got dragon. There's for those on the audio, I've got dragons on my trousers. There's dragons all over the room. I don't actually have any tattoos. That's the one thing. I haven't got any tattoos yet. But if I ever do have a tattoo, it will have a dragon in it. But so the dragon. So this goes into interesting stuff for me. So the first thing is that the Kundalini. A lot of people know of the Kundalini. Now, how I was taught energy is like, I was taught it in a way that the physical body, you have bones and muscles and tendons and blood vessels, and there's all these different layers, and the energy systems are no different. So originally, like people would some people just talk about chakras, some people talk about meridians, some people talk about auras, some people talk about the Merkaba or the flower life. For me, how I was taught, all of these are layers of the energy body. Now, the Kundalini in the West is two serpents, and the two serpents rise up the spine. But for those of the East, so this is a Chinese Tibetan flag, the Kundalini is actually a dragon. And the dragon rises up the spine, activating the chakras on the way until it reaches the top. And the seventh chakra is actually a Tai Chi symbol, which is the balancing of energies. And it eventually reaches, if I can zoom in a little bit, it eventually reaches a diamond or a rainbow, because a diamond, when you shine light in the diamond, you actually see a rainbow. You see all the colors of the rainbow, which are all the colors of the chakras. And the dragon activates this up to the rainbow body, and the rainbow body is your energy, a form of ascension where you're raising to the next vibration. So the dragons are very much known for this, but the dragons are information I believe in and go by, and information that certain alphabet agencies, let's say, have also quoted, is that dragons do actually exist. Dragons are actually a dimensional being. They come from another reality, another dimension. A bit like not you personally, but your audience may want to laugh. A bit like unicorns, the Yeti, mermaids. They are all, according to a document from the CIA, they actually all exist. They're actually very aware of them, but they are interdimensional beings, that realities that come in and out when the energy raises to a certain point. So the dragons, and even in China, the dragon lines, or the ley lines, as we call them in the West, are called dragon lines in China. So the lines of the earth, these, which are very similar to the lines in the body, the meridians, these are known as the dragon lines. So the dragon beings, also the difference in the East, dragons are said to be of fur, not of scales. So they are actually more of a furry sort of serpent rather than a scaly one. But these beings are very high dimensional, and they very much communicate through energy, and they absorb and they fly through the energy. Whether it's the thing that often people raise an eyebrow to, but when I was in China, there was definitely two times, at least possibly three, where I came across a dragon being, and it was sitting there looking at me, and then it disappeared, and my teachers come back saying, "Oh, it visited you, finally did it." So I very much believe that they exist. If you look into Chinese astrology, you have 12 animals that in Chinese astrology. The other 11 are all real animals. So why would they do one mystical one? You know, and also, if you look into China, there are buildings with big holes in the center, and those big holes are in the center of the building to let the dragon through. Why would somebody in modern day society build a hole for a dragon if dragons weren't real? But I'll leave that in your mind and let that fester. But so the dragon energy, there are lots of dragon Qigongs, and even Shun Qi Shen. There's a dragon style Shun Qi Shen, and there's a dragon dog Shun Qi Shen, which is in the forbidden China. The forbidden temples, forbidden kingdom of China. You see these beasts, and we get told they're lion dogs, but they're actually dragon dogs, because the dragons have fur, and they have the head of a dragon, a body of a dog, and the dragon dogs are the guardians of the flower life. And there's actually a ball underneath that. It tends to be their right paw. And it's the flower life, which is the 64 circles or spheres interconnected, and that also represents the Divine Mother, Kuan Yin energy, and also the Tiridial field or Toro field. So the dragons are the keepers of the universal knowledge. They're keepers of heaven, but they're also the guardians of earth. And then the dragon dogs are sort of like the bodyguards, the protectors of also that knowledge and information.
Yeah, beautiful. And in fact, I have a friend, Frederick Lerman, who is a Tai Chi expert master. He studied with Chinese masters 50 years ago. And also he has an affinity for dragons. And when we used to connect, he was sharing stories from his years of meeting these wonderful beings.
Yeah, you know, it's a when you go to certain places, there are certain places still in the world where the things shift, and you see the energy change, and like we're talking about the oxygenators. The oxygenators are normally in mountains because of the higher vibrations lead to higher energy, and you can almost feel that energy entering your body. You can feel that energy joining you, and for me, it's not a case of do they or don't they exist. I know they exist. I can sense them, and there's science. Through science, we know that there are at least NASA, I think three or 4 years ago now, actually released a document that said there are 14 other dimensions they have discovered that contain life, and they left it like that. That's all they said. And we'll just leave that there, leave that in the corner. So there is information out there that knows that the multiverse theory, or the theory of other realities, exist. These other beings, definitely exist. And there's a document that states that another three-letter agency document, and it states that we do not create ideas, we channel them. and it talks about like the pineal gland is actually a receiver of it. It's also an eye. It literally is an eye. We know there's an optical nerve in the pineal gland, and your eye, your first eye, sees infrared and ultraviolet. So when you see things in the corner of your eye, and you get that voice that's, oh, don't tell people you've seen something, they think you're crazy. No, you literally have an eye that sees. It sees infrared and ultraviolet, the higher vibrational frequencies. So you are seeing stuff. It does exist. But they know, this documentation says that stories that people think they've created or invented are actually channeled information of realities, which leads you to stories like Star Wars, stories like Lord of the Rings. All of these other stories, are they actually just made up, or are they actually other realities that have seeped into ours, or at least the information of them has seeped into ours, and we're translating them, we're putting them out there? I think it is that case, but the dragons very much are real to me, and you can definitely, in Kung Fu, in Qigong, you can move and act in certain ways to certain animals and gain the energy of those animals and gain their characteristics. So there is a whole, like, you know, so there's ones of tiger and the crane and the snake. There's all these different, but the dragon energy is very coiling energy, but it's very powerful and it's flowing energy and it's very confident energy. And I definitely love channeling that energy, and it's a fun thing, and it keeps you fit.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fact that indigenous people shape-shift into a panther or an eagle or a condor or any other, like a wolf or any wild animal, so they can run with them in the forest or the jungle. So that's beautiful. Shifu.
Yeah, and like I say, for a lot of people, they struggle with this stuff because we're, you know, like if you're only used to speaking one language, then hearing other languages sound very weird. But when you speak more than one, you start going, your brain starts expanding and you start seeing other things. And this is the thing. When you start looking, when you lean back and you start looking at other things and you start seeing the information and seeing other stuff that's out there, the interesting for me, like quantum physics, epigenetics, these sciences are literally, the ancient knowledge is being proved by these sciences. And that's the thing, is that I think we're in the most fantastic time to be alive, because the old magic is coming back, and this time it's coming back with evidence. You know, is that, you know, there's actually proof of it coming, and as people see it more and more, the biggest thing with all of this is the more you open yourself up, you don't necessarily have to believe, but you have to be open. And when you open up, when you open your eyes, you get more lighting and you see more things. If you squint, you'll see very little. So people have been squinting for an awful long time, but now they're starting to open their eyes. And when you do open your eyes, you'll see more of the wonder that's around you.
Yeah, Sifu, fascinating conversation, and we are at the end of it. Any final words?
Breathe. Breathe. The way you breathe is important. If you breathe fast, erratic, and shallow, your thoughts, your actions, the way you are will be fast, erratic, and shallow. But if you breathe slowly and smoothly and effortlessly, then your thoughts, your actions, your emotions will be smooth and effortless. So focus how you're breathing.
Thank you very much. All the best in what you are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Take care.
And to my guests, thank you for watching. Share it, leave a comment. Visit us on the websites I mentioned at the introduction of the video. And until next time, love and gratitude.